Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of How to Be a Real One Percenter. This is a podcast where we're redefining what it means to be a one percenter. No more the obsessive, driven, at all costs success in one area, but this is more about how to love our life, like to be a real one percenter. It's about the quality and the experience of our life, and that includes both success and also just, are we enjoying the ride, or how happy are we? So today I've got a very special guest, Kevin. Kevin, really want to say firstly, thank you for being on the podcast. Appreciate you making the time, and we go back a ways. I'm just really pleased that you're here. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. I feel actually pretty honoured and privileged to be on here today, because if I was really honest, I wouldn't consider myself as a one percenter or someone that you'd want to bring on this podcast. But look, I'll leave that for you to make that decision. But for me, it's always been about trying to get the best out of myself and being the real person that I am. And so I'm really excited about today and sharing, I guess, my story, just the right words.
Yeah. Well, I know why you said that, but yeah, I mean, look, the real one. I'm glad you said it that way, Kevin, because to me, the real 1% is a pathway, not necessarily a destination. And what you just said there is like, for me, a real 1% is somebody dedicated to living their genuine life, and man, that's you, right? Like, the conversations we have are not easy at times. They can, I've often said, we may do a lot of courageous things in our life, but the most courageous thing we'll ever do is actually hold up a mirror and be willing to look inside. And, when I look at the consistency that you've done that, and, in a moment, we're going to find out some of the things that you've been through, when you came. I still remember a lot of them, but what you had many opportunities where you could have run from that, and you've never have. It's been 5 years now. We were just discussing before today that we've been having our conversations for 5 years. And so absolutely, you've been dedicated to that 1% pathway, and it's been a joy for me to see what's come out of that for you in all aspects of your life, and business and personal and everything. But let's just we'll go maybe take a trip back and build it up, so that I'm looking forward to people out there, the watchers of the podcast, to hear your story. And I know there's a lot to learn from you in terms of what you've applied. So the first question I have for you is really, what was your life like when you arrived to work with me and expand and start your real 1% journey? What were things like?
Wow, I was actually. We'll get onto this probably a little bit later, because there's some things we've even discussed in the last few months around the fact of things that have happened in my life, and I've got friends that have said, "Geez, Kev, things are always happening for you." But at that time, it was probably quite a real intense time. I was probably only a year or 12 months, 15 months after my dad had been taken in a pretty tragic way. He'd actually been murdered, and so I was had been a pretty crazy ride, and almost sort of like an out-of-body experience. You're sort of looking at life going, wow, this is kind of crazy. There'd been court cases, and to be honest, there was putting strains on the marriage, and also had found out that my house that we were starting to renovate had bad EQC repairs on it, and all that sort of stuff. So. And on
For people out of Christchurch, that means after the earthquakes in Christchurch, EQC came in when your house was what we called munted, Kevin, right? Like it's your house had a lot of problems, and just for people that I'm sure most New Zealanders would know EQC, but just to make sure.
Yeah, and it was crazy, because we'd already repaired one house and bought another one thinking that it had already been repaired, and unfortunately those repairs weren't great. So we're doing that, and then to be honest, I was I was starting to, and probably didn't realise at the time, was really in a struggling with what was going on with running the business, because I've been out of it quite a bit. At the time, I was leading the business, and it was just a lot was going on, and I felt completely overwhelmed.
And we should probably let the viewers know that you are co-owner of Computer Culture, which is quite a successful IT services. You will describe what it does more. I know that you've what I get from what you and your business partner Craig are about is just real genuine care for your, the people you serve, your staff, just a really great, one of those great companies. So just let everyone know that that's when you say the business, it's a very significant business that that you started 17?
Yeah, just turned 17 on the 1st of October actually. So we started on the 1st of October 2007. And it was just Craig and I then, but we've grown it to a team of 27. We look after business clients and, essentially the external IT department. And yeah, we're really proud. We've got some amazing people working for us. And look, people are what's the centre of our business. In fact, one of our core values is that we really care about people, and we're really fortunate to have an amazing team that go out in there and attempt to do that for our clients as well.
Well, you aptly named your business too, because a lot of people give lip service to that type of we care type thing, but you guys really do. We work in the area of business as well as your personal life, and so I've seen firsthand what you do. So it's great. And so you talked about some challenges that were going on at the time. So we're sort of we're going to what was happening when we met. What was life like? I remember it was quite a stressful time for you.
You keep joking about me, Shrita, about the fact that you've got this image of me putting my feet up on a desk or lying on a beach at some point, but that was just so far from where I was at that time. I think we talked about, there was a saying I used to say every time I met you was going, "Oh man, I've just got so much on my plate."
I remember that.
On my plate. And it seemed to be a rhetoric, and knowing now too, I was confirming that every time I was saying it to you in my mind. I was going, and as we'll get to a little bit later, I didn't realise that possibly, now that I was creating that. And
I mean, to be fair, Kevin, if most people looked at what you were dealing with, they would agree that you had a lot on your plate, right? It's not that you didn't. It was just what I think what I'm really looking forward to getting into in this conversation is what did you discover about that, and I think you're getting very. I think you probably got your feet on the table at times now, because you definitely seem much more.
Yeah, definitely starting
to.
I've definitely offloaded a lot, and really, when I say offloaded, it's more just my perception of the world now and myself, and taking away a whole bunch of veils that we put in front of ourselves that we don't have any idea about. Of course, over my time in my life, I've done personal development things, and it's always been about trying to be the best person I can. In fact, it was behind my story, and probably appropriate to go back to then. Look, I think it was around 6 or 7 that a really tiny event happened, from an adult's perspective. But as a kid, my mum and dad separated when I was pretty young. And back in the 70s, that was still pretty rare. And so at school, I'm pretty sure, even though it was at a little tiny school in Diamond Harbour, we were, I think, probably the only family that mum was an only parent. So there was this element of being different, and not that I remember too much of my, under 5 and that sort of thing. But mum said that, hey, look, I was this kid that was really, really easy, really joyful, happy, and all that sort of stuff, and said that I was, a really good boy. So that probably tied in beautifully. One morning I went up, and back in the rules back in there wasn't to get out of bed and stuff, and I went up and sneaked out and to play with some toys. And I thought, it's getting about the time everyone was going to wake up, so I sneaked back downstairs with this toy to play with in my bed, and I dropped it down the stairs, and it of course went crashing down the stairs. And I had suddenly, and I have no idea why, but had this sudden feeling of, oh my goodness, I've just woken everybody up, and I'm going to get into heaps of trouble. Yeah. Of course I didn't. Mum came out, and if I remember, I sat on the stairs and I was bawling my eyes out. But in my mind, in the visual thing that I did, that I was suddenly this bad boy.
You had decided it.
I had decided it. And so, man, I just had no idea that then for, up until, we met 5 years ago, that my whole life was defined by that. And Like it just happens, like it is, and probably discussed by other people on this podcast and stuff. It happens in stealth, and so the rest of my life, probably from that point onwards, was about proving to everyone that I was this good boy.
And by stealth, I'm assuming you're meaning you had no idea it happened, and it's
idea.
running your life. Yeah,
had no idea. And so, I like using analogies, and it's that whole thing, like, back in the day I learned to drive. It was a manual car, and you go to start learning for the first time, and it was, the foot off the accelerator, foot on the clutch, change gear, and then foot off the clutch from the front. And you think about those things. But this stuff is just all happening just automatically. You don't even have, there's no conscious thought about it. It's just happening underneath. And so what blew me away, and of course all of my life, is that, and so I really took that being a good boy to another level. And so, and I think what we discovered, or you helped me discover, was that good boy turned into trying to be the superhero.
Yeah.
And
the bad boy, you mean the one that decided he was bad?
That's right.
Yeah. So just to put a little context for people that may be watching this and not have any background or seen it before, we deal with something in the work is it's kind of like the realm of what we don't know. And this, my own story, Kevin, is when I had my turnaround in life, which I've shared before. I got hungry to turn my life around, but a lot of the stuff that I was learning wasn't actually giving me the result that I was looking for. And then I just got really committed, and I started to find that things that really worked weren't necessarily popular. They weren't things that everybody was talking about. And I sort of called them either my hidden, or, the hidden keys to success, or the realm of what we don't know. And I just wanted to give some context, because I think that's what you're saying here is, you didn't know that dropping the toy down the stairs that day created a whole identity for you. You went from this good, joyful boy to somebody who just decided in yourself, didn't realize you decided it. That sitting on the stairs crying is an important moment, because you decided something that day and created an identity, right? Which is what we've spoken about. But what I'd love to find out, and I think what we'd love to hear, is what was the sort of impact? So from that point, how did it impact you from, I think you said you were 5.
Yeah.
What started to happen, and what was the impact that had on your life as you didn't know it, up until the time we started to discover it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and that's what I was saying. Look, I'll take it for the first step. The first one was, all these things about saying I had heaps on my plate and all these things that were going on at the time, and things felt like they were starting to unravel for me. And I look back on it now. As I said, I thought I knew myself really well. So when we started having a chat, we talked about a whole number of things about knowing about myself, but had no idea this thing was going on underneath. And then, so through the questioning and what was going on and where I was feeling at the moment, I came to that realization that that I was coming out of this bad boy thing, or I had realized that's where it was, and I was a superhero. But at that moment that I realized that's what I was doing, it suddenly was pretty impactful for me as well, because I suddenly, if you remember, had a massive impact on me, because part of being the good boy and all those other things was, my integrity was really important to me, about being genuine and all the rest of it. But suddenly I realized that I was doing everything for everybody else to do, and then I started questioning everything that I'd done up to that point in time. It felt like I didn't know myself, like I was, it was the most, and it was a crazy experience. I remember saying, and I think the word that was used was this blueprint. I could just see, and suddenly this moment of coming to this realization that all the stuff that I was doing for everyone else. It wasn't actually me being my true self.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the work, Kevin, and this is it's quite an important thing here, because it's a big thing to be talking about. What you're really saying, and the words that I would put to it in the context of the work, is that we actually create, before we just don't know that it happens, but we create a story about who we are, right? And it's in moments of time like that moment with the toy on the stairs, or it can be anything, seemingly big or small, it doesn't matter. It's a moment where there's a real heightened awareness and like a real fear. And in order to protect ourselves from experiencing the pain of that, whatever we went through, we actually create a story, an entire story or identity about who we believe ourselves to be. And we don't know we've done that. So we just say, this is me. Or that we'll use words like, oh, that's just my personality. Yeah. And you'll know now it's not. And so the interesting thing with you, because it's once we believe that story, it impacts every aspect of our life. Everything, right? And, when you said earlier, you were a little surprised to be invited on the Real One Percenter call. I just remember it, Kevin, because, sometimes we just do that step by step, right? Like when people are developing or beginning to understand their identity or their story they created, because as you said, it's not our genuine self anymore. That gets shoved to the side because we believe we have to be this persona to be good. What you're saying is so important right now, because there's a lot of people out there that they don't know, but they're doing things to be a good person, but that's not necessarily genuine. And society pushes that. Don't we want, be good, be this, be that? And it's like, we want to be good, but we want to genuinely,
it needs to come from a genuine, authentic place.
Right.
And this I thought it was, but was far from it. Because I remember you talking about it, and it really resonated with me. As when you've got a little kid and they're playing around with something, or they might suddenly learn a new backflip of bits and pieces, and as parents we come out and we go, oh, well done, that's amazing. Yeah. And suddenly, in a moment, the next time they go to do it, they're more concerned about looking at you to see what the reaction is, because suddenly they've been praised. Yeah. And I thought, man, that is a really great analogy about essentially what happened at that point in time.
That's when their life changed. So instead of just enjoying the moment, doing the backflip, because that was their life.
Authentic self.
Yeah, being their authentic self, didn't care if they fell. It was like, oh, I'm good if I do it. I got praised. Is the person that praised his mom or dad there to praise me for the, and you'll see it after that. They'll keep looking and keep looking. But what I wanted to say about you, because I mentioned it about the Real One Percenter, you were really interesting, Kevin, because, one of the reasons I put you, very much at the top of the list is because one of the reasons is when you started investigating, you don't do things by halves. I remember you coming and saying, I saw this blueprint of my entire life. Like a lot of times people get that a lot more gently and we take one story at a time.
It wasn't easy.
Well, but you obviously that's where you were. And I always say, look, I can only help people go as far as they're already wanting to go. Yeah. And we may not know that we want to go that far, but you obviously wanted to be your genuine self 100%. And you got, the
reaction was pretty significant.
You looked in the mirror quite intently, let's just say. But well, look, that what an amazing journey to be able to share. So you had some, you looked at the blueprint and said, hey, my life's been a story, and you realized all these motives that you had. But then, so what happened since then, right? Because the Kevin that I'm sitting here looking at and talking to you today, and I mean this in the best of ways, like is you're just so genuine, and the real Kevin is just is such a delight to be around. Like the other one was really cool, but he could be a bit,
bit
stress-ridden. It's just really joyful. So maybe would a real something that could benefit us all is to share what was that journey like. So you saw this blueprint. You saw, hey, I just created a motive. I thought I was a bad boy when I wasn't. You said you just started living the rest of your life to try to prove that you were a good boy and a superhero, so everybody would think you were good. And you woke up to that quite suddenly in your case. And then so take us from the journey from there. So what?
Yeah, look back now, incredible gift, because even though I probably looked at it initially, we're going, oh my goodness, I've been a fake for the last 42 years or whatever it was at the time. And so I probably looked at it like that for the first time, actually, giving myself a bit of a hard time. And if you remember, for quite a period after that, I felt completely lost, because you suddenly went from an operating model that you had for your whole life to suddenly going, actually, what are the things I love doing? Because a lot of the things I think I was doing previously was to prove to everyone about what it was. So did I like the things that I did for enjoyment? Did I want to be the business owner, anymore? And we'll talk a little bit about that as well, is that, it was an incredible gift, because even outside of following on from that, you've worked with my business partner Craig, and and to really get back and authentic about what it was, because at that point of time I was at a real crossroad, going, actually, because I wanted to be the best dad, the best person, the best husband, and all the rest of it, and actually because of the motive and the way I was doing it, there was definitely aspects of that, but there was a whole lot of stuff on it that was creating issues as well. Yeah. And I guess, there's some in there of the way I perceived that I was being, all these good people and stuff like that. Actually wasn't. It was actually creating issues as well. And one of the ones, about being a superhero is, to be a superhero, things have to be going really bad. Yeah. That's when superheroes come in, right? Right. And so superheroes need drama. Yeah, and actually that part has only I've only just really in the last 4 or 5 months realised the impact on that, and it's it's been a bit of a rough road. But what it was this massive weight on my shoulders, because I had to feel like I had to do everything. Like I probably wasn't leading at times. Like, I'm really proud of the business we created, but at times I probably wasn't leading the business really well, because I felt I had to do everything. I had to do all these things, and that caused problems as well, because you don't delegate. Our business was growing, and so I ended up being I was stymieing my own business, and so there was that happening. And then unfortunately, That's
a really profound thing you're saying, Kevin, because a lot of people will be doing it, right? Because we have a story that we're doing it. It's not just we're growing a business, we're doing it so we can look good, or we can do this. And then what you just said is absolute gold, that can stymie, because the initial hard work leads to growth, but then what do? You've now got more to do. You're just that one person. I just wanted to pause there for a minute, because that's real gold. But so it started to create some stresses.
It was creating so many stresses, and that's why I was saying to, like when I came to you, I had, all this, my plate was so full, but actually I was doing it to myself to fulfill my, my story. And so, unfortunately, a really great gift at that time, but not long afterwards, it led to my, and my wife at the time, as marriage coming to an end, or we're going our separate ways, and then also around going, hey, look, I was seeing at the time that my business, I thought I was doing it for my family, for everybody else, and then going, actually, is this the right thing for me going forward? And so what was really great, though, as a gift out of that, I had to work through tidying up some of these things that had now got a bit of a mess and need to be sorted out. But it actually was a really great gift, now looking back on it, is we were able to now look at the business and go, actually, what did I want from it? So, you and I and Craig got together and reconnected about why we even started Computer Culture, and got back to the roots of what it was. We looked at our vision and our what we wanted to create out of a business, and it was then suddenly it was not easy, because going through all those things, but also it was a really good feeling getting back into actually the reasons why and connecting with that.
Well, and so interesting, because I know, because I have something to do with your business in terms of how we've been working with that, you and Craig and me, and it led to a lot of changes in what you got, what you're bringing to it, and it's like the original vision didn't change, but it's 2.0, isn't it? And it is. It's big. It's just interesting to see that because Craig, great couple of business partners, you guys, like family, and what you've built together, but he got on board with it, and you guys just got really genuine about the way you wanted to do it. And it's not a restart, but it's like you have the foundation of what you built, I think, for about 12 years at that time, roughly 12 or 13 when we started working on that. And when I watch with you two, what's really inspiring is that in bringing your more genuine selves to it, it's your roles have changed, and the whole thing, and it's really just got a great dynamic energy to it. So I just thought I would add.
And I'm really grateful, for the work that you've done with Craig and I, but also to Craig and the team that I've got at Computer Culture. It wasn't easy for them too. Like I don't underestimate yeah, it was a bit of a rough road for me, but also it was creating some real problems at work, and I guess that just shows the culture and the most incredible people that we've got at our business is they hung in there as well. They kept saying, "Hey, look, this is the Kev," but I didn't know who it was at that point in time. I was starting to, trying to learn who this new Kev 2.0 was, and of course they were having to go through that ride as well. But everyone, even though there was certainly some easy moments, but we've now got to a pretty amazing place where we really want to take the business now, and we've got a really amazing team of people, and all that SLT in my business, and all the rest of the team, that raw core is still there, and so what an incredible thing for us to have sort of gone through, understand. We're really clear about what we are as a business. It's a business that we all want to be proud of, and pretty exciting about the future and where we're heading at the moment.
Yeah, and it's all new and expansive and new territory. But an interesting question might be, if you'd have to speculate here, but if you hadn't changed, if that Kevin that had the motives, that we're talking about having motives of looking good and all that if you hadn't done all of this and you had to go back and say, what would computer culture have, what's your best look at, where would it have gone if you hadn't changed?
It's a really good question, Shrita. I don't think it would have been a great outcome, to be honest. I was getting to the point where I was beyond myself. I knew things weren't right. It was coming to quite a crescendo, and I think it could have easily been disastrous for the business, and left me in a really burnt out place. So look, I guess one of the other things too is I'm really one of the other gifts, probably, and the ones that we've been talking a little bit more about recently. There's things now too is that I've got a real sense of when things aren't right. And so I think this discovery that that had and an understanding around my story, it still keeps coming up, right? But also the great gift now is when things don't feel right, when they don't feel off centre, I really investigate that now, and I'm really excited about what might come out of it. I know a lot of the times when things aren't going right for a lot of people, and I can only talk obviously for myself, but you think things are bad, things aren't great, and we look at that negatively. But actually I'm starting to really embrace the fact that when things aren't going right, I really love that too, because there's so much learning that comes out of it.
That's like such a powerful thing, because most of us look at things are going good, things are going bad. When they're going good, we get on a high. When they're going bad, we get on a low.
And we get on a roller coaster.
A definite roller coaster. But how powerful is it when you say things don't appear to be going well? What's the gift in that for me? Then everything is a win, right? And you just said something powerful. Like, if you start looking forward to those things, who can stop you? Yeah, right, but what happens to most of us, that's disappointing, and it throws up a roadblock and it slows us down, or unfortunately a lot of people give up at that stage. So you're just really giving us some. I love the word gold or gold nuggets. You're having some. I knew you would, and certainly appreciative for everybody on behalf of everybody watching or listening. So Kevin, I've one of the constructs that I work with, or understandings that I work with, is that innately in us, in each human being, we have a desire. It's human nature to want to live our greatest lives. And I have a way that I illustrate that, and then I have a question for you. So I often ask people, if you think about, say you took a quiet moment when you get up in the morning, mm-hmm. and you just really look at your innermost thoughts, mm-hmm. Which of these three most closely resembles, you've heard this question, right? And I have a question for all of us, for you. Which of these three most closely resembles your innermost dominant thinking? So did you get up this morning and say, what I'd really love today is, I just want my life, what I'm getting at. I want my life to be just a bit worse than it was yesterday. I want to have that a bit less business success or work success. I want my relationship to be a bit more disconnected and argumentative. I want my health to go a bit bad, but be a bit worse today. So that's option one. Option two is I don't want anything to change. Like I just want, the success levels to be the same, my health to be the same, my relationship to everything to be the same. Yeah. Or option three is I just want to have a bit more like whatever's important to me. If it's a relationship, I want to have a bit more connectedness with my loved one or with my kids, my family, or with any aspect of family. I want to have, closer friendships rather than more distant ones. I want to have more business success or wealth or whatever the case might be. I think we can all see from that, I've asked that question to a lot of people in a lot of groups, and everybody says, well, obviously it's number three, right? We want to grow. And I say that we have a propensity, we have a human nature, it's human nature to want to grow and to have the most fulfillment in life that we can, not just success, but to be happy. And so what I would ask you is in that journey, because that's really a basis of what, a basis for what we speak about all the time. Mm-hmm. If someone just wasn't familiar, one of the reasons we started this podcast was to help share this word, because it is, not the everyday conversations that people have. Mm-hmm. What would you say? It's kind of putting you on the spot because there might be a few. But what's the first one that comes to mind? I love it because when I have people on the podcast, they say something different because something different is important to them. And I know you've applied a lot of stuff. You're a definite doer. But what's something that you would say to people viewing or listening to this podcast, and they were over there saying, well, you know what, I want to live my greatest life. Mm-hmm. What's one thing that comes to mind that you would most want to share with it from what?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I'm aware, to just put this into context, I'm aware that my story's there, and it's something I need to work on daily anyway. So from that perspective, that number three, absolutely, I want to grow and learn more about how I can enhance, that story or remove that veil of that story to become more genuine myself. One of the things that I'm working on at the moment is around some creations that I'm doing around what we're doing with the business. And so, in the morning, I really connect to and visualize, where I want to with some of those things. Also, got some changes going on. I'm now in a new relationship, and we've just brought the families together and just recently. So after quite a wee while, we've now brought them together, and so that's been a big step for us as well. But have these creations of what I want it to look like and create. And so in the morning, it's a process of visualizing that and then understanding where I'm at. And I think that's I probably didn't realize how powerful that was, and actually going through the process. I thought initially it would work well just by lying in bed and visualizing, closing my eyes. And there's definitely an aspect to that, but it's incredible. And I think it relates to, you hear some, famous people that have, sports people or whatever, have written down their goals, writing their goals and put them on the top of the wall and on top of the door so they see it going through. But that process of writing down and seeing where you've got to from the day beforehand or what you've achieved recently by going, actually, where am I at right now and what are the next steps I can do? That's something that I'm really, I'm not perfect at it, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I'm really, it's becoming a daily routine for me.
So you'd suggest that for people. So basically just to help people to put the context. So what we work with is that you, first of all, get genuine about what you want. So that's always the first thing. Like what you want is really what you want. So that it's not influenced by the story. And we say that that because you really feel it. You get a moment of inspiration or clarity and inspiration. And then the process is once you do that, then the visualization is like you get yourself into a feeling place of having it. It's I work with athletes in that, and there's training, when they go for winning a race or whatever the case might be, actually visualize every single, frame of it, every placement of the foot on the track and, seeing the audience and seeing the people and seeing yourself crossing the line and taking the tape and all of that. So it's getting to the feeling place, and that's what's really important. And then the part about what you said of where are you now, so it's a process where you gauge the process, whether it be small or big, right? And one of the reasons is because the mind, what we term as the ego mind, is just or the resistant mind, whatever you want to call it, it just naturally wants to focus or conditioned to focus on what's going wrong and what we haven't done yet. And this is a process of going, but hey, every single day, something is going forward for it. Something is moving forward.
It's such an incredible feeling. It's probably, yeah, I've always been really good at visualizing things and seeing where I can go. That has come reasonably naturally. I know some people sometimes struggle with that, but for me, that part has always been reasonably easy. But that second part especially is writing down. It is such it's incredible the impact that it has on me going, actually, I'm actually heading towards where I want to go. Because look what I did yesterday. From my action list, I've now done something. And it could be some days you do more than others, but even just knowing on those days where you go, oh man, I probably didn't, I wasn't so as effective yesterday as I thought I was going to be, but there was always something that you can down and go, oh man, don't be hard on yourself. This is where the ego comes in again, as you're saying. But you can then look at it and go, wow, I've actually taken another step forward towards that vision and that creation that I want to have.
It's bringing up that one of the things we talk about is the importance and power of focusing, and what that does is put the focus on what you're doing, not what you're not doing, not what we're not doing. And by putting the focus on what you're doing and what's happening going right, then are you experiencing? Oh, I know you are, because we talk about it. You're experiencing that it's growing more of. You're building the momentum towards getting to the outcomes that you want. So, very interesting, Kevin, because I know you've applied so many different things. Like people come to the work here and. That I do, and they want this piece of it, or they want that piece of it, and one of the reasons I've asked you to come here is you want it all. You're one that you wanted every piece of it, right? And and you've applied yourself accordingly. I find it really interesting that that's the part that you picked out. It's very inspiring to me, because you've done so much work on story and on connecting with who you genuinely are. So I'm quite inspired to hear that what you would share with people is the visualization and recognition process of that, because it is powerful and going forward. But it also shows me how far you've come, and it's all about proactive and what you're wanting to create. Because a lot of times when people hear about stories, it's frightening to them, right? Because it's a frightening thing to think, I may not be being my genuine self, and I may be doing what I'm doing because I have motives for doing it, not because it's genuinely me. But we all do. That's just the way it's part of human life, is that we have it. And I think what I'm really appreciative that you're bringing out at the moment, or today, is that we don't know that process happened, and it's like it's a big thing to do. It can be a fearful thing to look at that and to say, well, hey, but it's very important, isn't it? Because
absolutely, there are so that one is really important, and it seems to be one that I'm. Because like all these things, it's about them becoming more of a habit around how you do things on a daily basis, and the more you do it, it just becomes part of your daily life. There's been a couple others as well that have been that are really important to me, but probably become more of more just automated in my life. The turnarounds were massive at the start, and at times probably struggled with them, but they're the ones that were probably the most significant around suddenly getting to realizing where I was and actually come to the realization of my story. So questioning, everything that's going on, the reasons why you did stuff, and the emotional charge. So I'm really aware now that when I have an emotional charge, I'm now going, okay, what's going on here, Kev? What's causing, what part of my life or story is coming up for me now? And the other one is, and that's even for how I deal with other people. When you start seeing in other people as well, when they have the emotion, is actually being really kind to them, because
they're having a story.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the big thing is that we often get really upset about other people, about what they do, if they've done something and all the rest of it. But actually, I'm really, really clear and aware these days that it's actually nothing about ourselves. And of course, I was probably the one that did that the worst, because I was, you get an emotional charge from someone. I thought, again, it fitted into my story of being a bad person.
Yeah, and so it was made about you.
so I made it about myself when it was actually, which but it was a really strong feeling. So a couple of those things, living my life on a daily basis allows us to be really kind and genuine towards people, but also it allows me now, what we talked about before, of also realizing when some things are happening around, I go, okay, cool, what's going on now? What's the new adventure of understanding on what I can learn about myself, or get more from being this genuine person I really want to be, and authentic person.
Well, wow, that just felt like boom right then. That just put the whole thing into context. And I do a recap of the episodes because people sometimes talk about things that have impacted their life. So when you mention turnarounds, I'll talk a little bit about what that is in the recap, so people can understand what was that turnaround process and what you're speaking. But what we can obviously see here, Kevin, is the impact that it's had. And I always wondered how this was going to go, because I'm like, well, Kevin's one of these people that have applied everything, and there's so many different, and I want to thank you, because I think we've got a real understanding of the different things that you've experienced along the way. So that'll pretty much bring us to a wrap. But is there anything that if there was anything, not that there needs to be, but is there anything you think, okay, someone's out there listening and viewing, where you've come to, is there anything else you'd want to say to someone that's watching or listening to this, in terms of the journey?
It's a really good question. I hadn't, something that just popped into my mind right now is, look, I first want to say thank you. I'm really grateful our paths crossed, and there's some things that we've been talking about recently around, how that happens. But the big thing for me is that I would love, if someone hearing the story and hears, or my story, and here's some things that may resonate with them. Look, I would really suggest they go for it and start discovering this as well. And I know that, if they could be, start embracing some of these tools and learning about themselves and realizing that we all have these veils, then I care. I genuinely do. I'd love to see other people benefit from this as well. So,
well, Kevin, that means a lot to me that you said that on this podcast, because look, all of this for me is about that. It's, if I can just share something, because you've opened the door to allow that. It's when I came through. So I had a dark time in my life, my teens and in my early to mid 20s, and I had a wake up call, an epiphany that life didn't have to be that way, and I started looking for things, teachers, and I went to the library and I went to the bookshop and I started learning and reading, and a lot of it just sounded really good, but it didn't work. And I got super committed. I'm like, no, I'm going to live my greatest life. And, now when you get committed to something, things show up for you. And I started to just the most amazing teachers, right? They weren't necessarily the most popular, and they started to show up in my life, and I started to learn things that were actually making a difference. And it's been that way for 30 years that it's continued. It means a lot to me that you said that. I didn't put you up to that at all, but this whole thing is, I want people to be able to have that in their life, and that's why we're doing the podcast. That's why I've asked you to have you take your time on a Saturday morning to come and share, because I would love everyone to wake up to who they truly are. It's my mission, and to live their greatest life. So it means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that. I didn't know that's where you were going to go, but I would love for people to start, because it's it makes a big difference, doesn't it, in your life? It's not about me or the work, because there's a lot of things going into the work, but
look, I know that I've still got a long way to go, but life's pretty exciting for me at the moment, as I said, about the business, but also, I'm in a new, as I said, we've been in a relationship and we've got families together, and it's I'm with someone that really resonates, and life's pretty great at the moment, and it has its challenges when you bring families together and that sort of stuff, but it also has made that a lot easier, because having these tools on board meant, oh wow, it's you can pick up the things where you would normally go, oh crap, things are going bad, but actually you can keep things in the context and genuine of what they're supposed to be, rather than what they can end up being when you're going through those challenging times as well.
Get on top of you. Yeah. Wow, but this has been so inspiring, Kevin, and it's been wonderful too, because we chat on a regular basis, but to go back through what's happened, it just recalled what you were like when you came, and just to see you here and what you're doing with your life is super inspiring. So I just want to end with saying, hey, thank you very much for coming and for giving your time, for sharing with all of us. This has just been so much gold. I usually dissect afterwards. There's a lot of gold in this one that we're going to pan through and get. And just thank you very much for your openness, honesty, for who you are, what you bring. And thanks for sharing it with us today, Kevin. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Shrita. It's been great. Thanks.
Well, thank you for watching or listening. And we look forward to seeing you on the next How to Be a Real 1%er podcast.